Yo, what's going on guys? My name is Chevalric and today I want to be talking about how RuneScape 3 should take some inspiration from old school RuneScape when it comes to designing their endgame grandmaster quest and how to execute their combat encounters and even puzzles. Because I feel like RuneScape 3 kind of fell into this place where their endgame quests feel not that difficult and quite easy, where you could even skip certain boss fights nowadays and it has checkpoints, etc, and where I think that is good, and we'll touch upon that in more detail later on in the video, I also think it kind of takes away from the satisfaction of completing a quest like that and the rewards that you could possibly get from it. Because I've been recently doing Desert Treasure 2 on old school RuneScape and having a blast, and also been in pain a lot, especially at the last boss fight that I need to do, the Whisperer, because I'm stuck on it. But I am motivated to take it out and take it on and learn the boss and actually fight it because it's difficult. And once you get it, because I was stuck on some other bosses as well, you feel very satisfied because you did beat it. And you will eventually be able to beat it again after the quest in a less debuffed version to get a lot of good loot. And that feels great. But before we get into it, if you do enjoy this video, leave a like, subscribe if you're new, join the section comments down below. You get the point. And follow me on Twitch. I'm live every single day at 5 PM game time. But let's get into it. I don't want to turn this into an old school RuneScape versus RuneScape 3 debate. I think both games have their strengths and have their weaknesses, and I think they both do things right. I would even argue that overall RuneScape 3 does their quests and storytelling a lot better and more grand, but Desert Treasure 2 is definitely a great example of how it is done in both games, quite frankly. Like, I think it's a top tier quest. Even if you would make a tier list of both games, it would definitely be S tier. And what makes it S tier is the difficulty and the lack of difficulty that is missing in Grandmaster Quest in RuneScape 3 as a contrast to it. Because the last two Grandmaster Quests, the real Grandmaster Quest, obviously the one with Rashul and Necromancy, is the Alpha Omega Quest. But if you did everything right and you just followed along with the progression that Necromancy laid out with you, you had the gear. And if you played Necromancy as intended, you also should know what you'll be doing when it comes to rotations, that you probably practice on her mod to be able to get all the plates to upgrade your gear. And to be honest, the quest isn't really a quest. I think you talk to 3 NPCs and then you're at the boss fight. And it is good for Necromancy and within Necromancy, but I don't really consider it as a Grandmaster quest. I think the actual last Grandmaster quest was the Extinction quest. I think the puzzles in that quest, especially in that little area where I think it's Erebus, I think is what it's called, they were okay. They were definitely, you know, a little bit challenging, and I think that's good. Like, I think it was generally a good quest and I did enjoy it. I did it on release and I was actually one of the first few people, at least to tweet it out, that completed it. And the boss fight at the end with Saren was quite decent in difficulty, but then again, you also had checkpoints and that made it quite a lot easier, at least in my opinion. And I think that's just kind of disappointing. I think a very good example of a difficult quest in RuneScape 3, which is the final quest, I guess, that was really difficult, was Slisk Endgame, where you had that incredibly difficult maze as a puzzle, and then you had the Slisk fight at the end, where before Slisk you also had to fight some NPCs. And I think that is the last really difficult Grandmaster quest that we had in RuneScape 3, and that was, I believe, in 2016, which is nearly 7 years ago as of me making this video. And when it comes to Grandmaster quests especially, I think there should be some sort of difficulty and some really good reward behind it. In old school RuneScape with the Desert Treasure 2 quest, you have 4 difficult boss fights, which are the actual bosses you will unlock after the quest, which are great, and you can even get loot during the quest, which is actually quite sick as well. I don't know if you can actually camp them during the quest. If that's the case, then that's pretty cool, to be fair. And you will be able to take them on in a slightly debuffed stage, but you still need to deal with all the mechanics, and it's still very difficult to go about all of it. And I think that's a very good thing. And the same with the puzzles. They are difficult, they are challenging, and there's even a section where you need to do 3 puzzles in a row, and if at some point you run out of supplies and you need to teleport out, you need to do all those 3 puzzles again. So need to make sure that you manage your supplies well, but then again, they also designed it in a way that it's not extremely difficult to make that streak happen, right? And I think it's a good example of difficult because it's a Grandmaster quest. It should be challenging. And I think that brings us into the argument that a lot of people probably bring up. Should there be PVM challenges in a questcape? Because that's something that comes up with Compcape. Should it be PVM focused? Because it's kind of a path outside of PVM, and especially Master Questscape is designed to not be PVM focused, at least from when it was. But there is PVM in the Questscape right now, and there is skippable stuff in the Questscape right now. And I think with endgame content, and especially Grandmaster Quest, there should be a level of difficulty that encourages you to get better gear. But you don't need absolute endgame gear to be able to do so. I think if you can do a boss with something like, I don't know, tier... Well, I mean, Serenic is not that difficult it's not that expensive anymore. At like, I think 15 million a set. If you could do it with regular Serenic and maybe, I don't know, like an tier 85 bow or something, or Decimation, I think is tier 87. If you can do it with that, I think that's good. Like, I think that's a very, very good parameter for gear that you should be able to do, and the mechanics should be challenging, and they should be punishing to a certain extent. And if you don't get it in one try, better luck next time, try again, because difficulty should generally be there. And I think that there's a difference between accessibility and difficulty, which I'm going to be making a video on in the future because of the work I don't really want to say work, but like collaboration I do with Jagex regarding accessibility stuff. But pretty much when it comes to difficulty in, for example, puzzles, something like the slider puzzle where, you know, there's a visibility change made, so you know that it's in the right place because a lot of the pieces look alike and look similar. That is different than just, you know, having you skip the puzzle. If you could pay like 100k to skip the puzzle, I think that is generally making the puzzle easier. But here you still need to do the puzzle. The only difference is the game will kind of tell you when everything is in the right place, making it kind of easier in a way. But then again, you still need to figure out how you actually do that type of puzzle and how you use a slider puzzle. And I think that is a good balance of still having some difficulty to it, but then again also, you know, making it easy for the people that need it, like myself, but in general as well, to give some sort of indicator on where to go. And I think that goes for rewards as well. I feel like, you know, a passive unlock like the Ring of Vigor that you got from Extinction is cool. Like, that's generally a good upgrade for PVM. But how cool would it be if we unlocked that Saren boss fight as an actual boss fight? And it didn't have to be like absolute endgame. It could have been like, you know, between endgame and mid-game bossing, and it could drop something quite nice, something niche, maybe like a tier 88 or tier 89 weapon that is good and a cheaper option to something like a tier 90, but still very, very powerful and worth getting if you don't have the money, kind of to bridge the gap. Obviously, right now, a lot of PVM gear dropped in price quite a lot because of Necromancy, but let's say that Ascension set was 200 mil or whatever for both of them, or 250 mil, and the previous bow, I think Decimation, is about 30 mil. There's a gap of about 170 mil there. How great would it be if that Saren boss fight, for example, would have dropped a weapon that would have set at like level at around like 100 mil or something, maybe 80 million GP. So it's a lot more affordable than the Ascension set, and it's pretty close in DPS, but it's just not close enough. Or maybe it's slightly worse in DPS, but it has like a decent special attack or something. Something like a mid-ground would be really good. And I think that would make these quests feel more like a Grandmaster quest as well, where yes, it's already difficult to complete it, but then when you complete it, you actually unlock something really useful in a new boss fight, which is exciting, instead of how you kind of unlock Rashul, where you talk to 3 people and then you can do a boss fight, and then, ooh, look, you have a boss fight. That felt so underwhelming, and it just, I don't know, like, it fits in with Necromancy and the idea how Necromancy is designed, but as a standard thing, just on its own, it's just a bit disappointing, at least in my opinion. But yeah, I just would like to see some more difficulty come to quest in RuneScape 3, and I don't think that should be something that shouldn't be done, because, well, we need to make sure that everyone can complete a Grandmaster quest. Well, yes, but then again, I also think that you should challenge people a little bit, because right now quests are not really that challenging. And I know I have endgame content gear, and yes, I know how to play this game, but then again, even in best in slot gear on the old school Desert Treasure 2 quest, where I could use the bow of Verdinus, or the Bova, where I had, besides my boots and my necklace, best in slot, I was struggling with that boss fight that I needed to use it on. I even had best in slot gear for another boss, and it was also still quite difficult. I had to learn the mechanics. I couldn't just skip them. And that is something that I think just goes to show that you can make difficulty even if you have best in slot gear, but then when you get it, it's an absolute breeze. Because once I learned the mechanics, it was super simple and it wasn't that difficult. But then again, it did encourage me to actually learn the boss. But hey ho, that is just my opinion on this matter. Let me know what yours is in the comment section down below. Leave a like if you did enjoy this video. It's a bit of a different one. And subscribe if you're new. And my name's Valric, and I'll see you guys in my next video.